Hello and welcome to Scream Theory. In this video, I want to break down Dickie Allen's vocal styles and techniques that he uses so that if you're trying to develop a similar sound or just get a better understanding of how someone at his level screams, well, hopefully this will help you.
Beneath the sun and the moon, the night sky, the end, the living trapped like rats, eternally damned.
So I've been practicing to him for about 2 years now, but it wasn't till the beginning of this year that I start to get more proficient at doing it. At first, it felt really awkward and really clunky to do, but now it feels extremely natural. I feel like I can do it better than most of my other vocal styles at this point. Now, his vocal style is extremely complex. I wouldn't recommend that a beginner just dive headfirst into trying to sound like him. I would recommend having a few years of practice under your belt first, but even then, you should still try to challenge yourself. Challenging yourself is good. You can get a lot of growth by just attempting things that you didn't think you'd be able to do and relentlessly practicing them. I've gotten a lot of growth and progress in my vocals from just trying to sound like other vocalists that I didn't even think I'd be able to come close to, or practicing songs that seemed way out of my league. And it may take a long time, but along the way, you will grow and you will progress. I mean, I had been practicing metal vocals for 10 years until I decided I wanted to achieve Dickie Allen's style, and it still took me another 2 years before I got there. Dickie Allen uses both fry and false chord screams simultaneously for most of the time. There's definitely instances where he might be false chord screaming more than fry screaming, and fry screaming more than false chord screaming, kind of letting one technique shine through a little bit more, but most of the time he's using both simultaneously. So my plan of attack for learning his style was first figuring out how to produce all of the different sounds that he's able to produce, getting really good at each one of those sounds individually, and then learning to fluidly transition between them and kind of meld them all together and do them at the same time. Now, I'm just going to be focusing on the obvious things he does, the techniques he uses for most of the time. All of the little embellishments and quirky things that he does will come naturally with practicing these as a foundation. Also, please listen to all of these examples with headphones or a good pair of speakers. It's not going to sound very distinguishable out of your phone speaker. So let's start with his high-pitched screams. Dickie Allen has 3 main types of highs that he does. He has his creepy, goblin-y, gurgly sounding scream. He has this brighter, more piercing and open sounding high-pitched scream, and then he has his tunnel throat screams, which allows him to produce like a snarling zombie dinosaur sound. Let's start with the muffled, gargly goblin voice, which you can hear a really good example of at the beginning of the song Plague Bearer, or in the song Swinecologist.
Night of the king's fist, ravaging land of worthless, lurking in the midst of things, amidst the catacombs like cutters in the dark, seeking seas for the covenant. I begin by picking away at the chest cavity, slowly sliding myself through the belly, gathering through to me, deep like a puppet.
So this is achieved through using your false chords. It's a high-pitched false chord scream, but typically when most people do a high-pitched false chord scream, they really open their mouth tall and they rev their false chords up and they make their false chords vibrate very quickly, and it produces like an electrifying serpent voice. Well, this style of a high-pitched false chord scream, you are instead going to try to flatten and widen your mouth and the top back of your throats, and really try to almost suppress your high-pitched false chord screams, almost like you're trying to pat it down. You can try first just keeping your mouth closed and exhaling through your nose while you do a high-pitched false chord scream. And then from there, just open your mouth. With this style of high-pitched false chord screams, I think about it like you're just trying to lazily talk with your false chords in a high-pitched positioning, not really trying to make the sound explode out of your mouth or, like I said, rev your false chords up and make them vibrate super quickly. You're just very relaxed and you're just kind of speaking in a high-pitched false chord scream.
Now I'm just lightly talking in my highs. Try to make it sound as gurgly as possible. There is no death for me to fear, for Christ the Lord hath died.
The next one is his bright, sharper, and piercing sounding high-pitched scream, which he does through fry screaming, and you hear him do this the most typically in the more melodic portions of the Infant Annihilator songs. A really good example is in the chorus of their song of Sacrament and Sincest, where he kind of says, "The child, now man, declares his intent." He really opens up, you hear that high just shine through, and it's really bright.
The child, now man, declares his intent.
Really, that's just a standard high-pitched fry scream. You're just trying to make it as high-pitched as you can, and there may be a little bit of false chord engagement where his false chords are just lightly vibrating above his true chords, but, the bulk of that sound comes from a high-pitched fry scream. So now let's talk about his tunnel throat screams. Tunnel throat is just a positioning, and you can do it with either fry or false chord screaming. It is when you simply just take the back of your tongue and pull it up, and then curl the front of your tongue or the tip of your tongue underneath your bottom teeth like this. And just putting yourself in this positioning has such a remarkable effect on the way your screams sound. Now, Dickie Allen will do this with either false chord screaming or fry screaming, but to really achieve that distinct, crispy, snarling sound, you have to do it with a fry scream. It still sounds crazy when you do it with a false chord scream. I'm going to show you the difference in how that sounds.
Wow! 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 Wow!
So they sound very similar, but that distinct, snarling, crisp sound is through the fry scream. What he'll also do to vary the sound of his tunnel throat highs is flaring his lips wide and narrow like this. And then another thing that I'm fairly certain he does to further vary the sound of his tunnel throat highs is also switching from a tunnel throat fry scream into a tunnel throat false chord scream, or vice versa. A really good example of him varying his tunnel throat highs like this is kind of in the beginning or the first 2 minutes of the song RAPE of the Sirens, YouTube Community Standards Have Mercy on Me. So you can hear in that section of the song how much he's able to vary the sound and the effects in his tunnel throat highs. Part of that is probably coming from him layering 2 vocal tracks on top of each other, but even without that, it's still pretty impressive. So if you can get all three of these, then the next goal is to learn to very quickly and fluidly switch between them on the fly. That's what helps make his highs sound so dynamic. Like there's so many different things going on with his highs because he's typically constantly switching between all three of these voices from syllable to syllable or word to word. He might start a word in his goblin-y, high-pitched false chord scream, and then quickly transition into a tunnel throat, high-pitched fry scream, and then open up and just do his normal, sharp, bright, piercing, high-pitched fry scream. And then sometimes he's doing these at the same time, maybe letting his false chords vibrate a little bit while he does a high-pitched fry scream, or he's switching between doing these so quickly that those transition periods just overlap and it sounds like he's doing them at the same time. Now, these styles of doing false chord and fry screams are not unique to Dickie Allen. There's plenty of other deathcore vocalists that do these, but what really seals the deal in his voice and in his high-pitched screams is the way that he pronounces his words. He has this medieval style of pronouncing his words, kind of like Gollum from Lord of the Rings, so I suggest just listening very closely to how he's pronouncing his words and just try to mouth them out and figure out those different mouth shapes that he's doing. So let's take the last two lines from the song Feast of Gore-Glutton, for example, where he goes, "Their mouths brimming with soiled skin they cannot speak. The damn now lay in the belly of the beast," where he's pronouncing it like,
"Their mouths brimming with soiled skin they cannot speak. The damn now lie in the belly of the beast." Their mouths brimming with soiled skin they cannot speak. The damn now lie in the belly of the beast.
And then the other thing he does is rolling his tongue when he pronounces the R consonant sound. A really good example is the song of Sacrament and Syncest during the chorus, where he's like, "Statues of iron stares as he thrusts. Rectum exposes the tormented soul's watch. Mammoth-like tusk throbbing in deep."
Statues of iron stares as they thrust. Rectum exposes the tormented soul's watch. Mammoth-like tusk throbbing in deep. Mangling his mother with serrated teeth.
So now let's talk about his lows. And what you have to understand is Dickie Allen actually changed the way he performs his lows between the album The Elysian Grandival Galeriarch and their most recent album The Battle of Yaldabaoth. So in the Elysian Grandival Galeriarch, or The Egg, it sounds like all of his lows are achieved through fry screaming. It sounds like all of his lows are just low-pitched fry screams. I haven't really heard anything on that album that really makes me lean towards a low-pitched false chord scream. But what you have to understand is Dickie Allen is extremely good at performing low-pitched fry screams. He is able to get his low-pitched fry screams very, very, very low-pitched, and he's able to produce such a thick distortion with the technique. So if you listen to the song Pelt of Innocent Flesh off of that album, right at the beginning, within the first 10 seconds of the song, he performs a low-pitched scream, and there's not a ton of instruments playing in the background, so you can really, really hear the effect on his lows, and it just sounds completely like the fry screaming distortion to me. And everything from the way he pronounces his words when he does his lows on that album to the effect and the quality of the distortion in his lows just screams fry scream to me, and that was definitely a pun. But if you'd like to get a better idea of how fry screaming sounds when used for deathcore vocals, then check out Bone Carver and also the band Until We Die, or anything by Dan Watson. He was the original vocalist for Infant Annihilator. He did the vocals on The Palpable Leprosy of Pollution, and he also went on to be the frontman for Enterprise Earth. Now, unfortunately, I am not nearly as good as Dickie Allen at doing low-pitched fry screams. They've always been my area of weakness, so I can't really give you any examples of what his old technique for screaming was, but the way that he does his lows now, or at least on their most recent album, he is definitely involving his false chords a lot more. He's still primarily using low-pitched fry screams for like the foundation of his lows, but you can definitely hear a lot of contribution from his false chords. And if you listen to the Battle of Yaldabaoth versus the Elysian Grandival Galeriarch, you can definitely hear a difference in the way his lows sound and also how he pronounces his words a majority of the time. But low-pitched false chord screams is an area that I am very strong in, and I can show you examples of that. So I'm going to show you an example of me performing a low-pitched false chord scream in the way that I think Dickie Allen is using his false chords, and then I'm going to show you my lowest pitched fry scream. It's not going to get nearly as low as what he can do, but just to give you an idea of the way each technique sounds, and then I'm going to perform them both simultaneously.
Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa! Whoa! First time, sink to the shadow. She creeps closer to the chair. Looking back and forth. Or sucking my Sunday sea. I am the bringer. I am the taker. Stay on my savagery. In the cries of the giant. In this my beauty's on display. Beyond my vision of rampant image and staring at the sky with a glimmer of lust in my eye.
So hopefully you can hear that it's starting to sound very similar to the way he does his lows in the Battle of Yaldabaoth. You also might be wondering about the tone and the quality of sounds that I'm able to get with my false chords, especially in that example with my lows right there. Well, I've been false chord screaming for a very, very long time. I wasn't able to achieve that sound until like 8 years of practicing false chord screaming. Then again, I didn't explicitly try to practice to achieve that sound. I didn't even know you could achieve that sound with your false chords, that smoother and almost kind of serrated sound. I've talked a lot about the tissue adaptations that the false chords make over time as you use them for years. Beginners' false chords vibrate like a rubber band. Master-level false chord vocalists, their false chords vibrate like a guitar string. There are actual tissue adaptations that get made through repeated stimulus of using the false chords that makes the tone and the sounds you're able to achieve with your false chords evolve over time. So if you're not able to achieve that exact type of sound with your false chords, just keep practicing and it will come with time. You may even be able to achieve it faster than I did because now you're aware that it's a possibility. I was not. I just kind of stumbled onto it around 8 years of practice and realized, wow, I can get like a smoother sound out of my false chords, and then that's the direction I took it. But he also uses the tunnel throat positioning with his low-pitched screams to achieve that more muffled sound. So I'm going to show you what that sounds like with just my false chords, and then I'm going to show you what that sounds like with just a low-pitched fry scream, or at least the lowest pitch that I can produce. And then I'm going to put them together and once again show you some more examples from Infant Annihilator songs.
Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Tiny bones, they pick their teeth, guillotine on the carcasses they hurt and beat. Yep, little sluts. Yep, on the years, use for the resist of the purity. Yet exhibit, yet exquisite, even the display of ecstasy.
So that's pretty much it for this video. Hopefully this gave you a really good idea of how Dickie Allen screams and uses these vocal techniques. If you like the way I teach metal vocals and you want to support my channel, well, please leave a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you all in the next one.